Well, hi, welcome to the KaiNexus Continuous Improvement Podcast. I'm Mark Graben, and today we are doing a quick preview of our next webinar in our KaiNexus Continuous Improvement webinar series. It is titled The Power of Process, the Role of the System Architect. It's going to be presented live November 18th at 1 o'clock Eastern, and we are joined today by the presenter for that session. He is Eric Ethington. Among other things, he's the president of his firm, LeanShift Consulting. For those who are watching the video, you can see over his right shoulder the LEI Lean Leaper, as that little character is called. Eric is on faculty with the Lean Enterprise Institute, and more recently, he co-authored a book with Matt Zayko titled The Power of Process, a story of innovative lean process development. So you can register for the webinar. If you're hearing this after the 18th, you can register and get the recording. Go to kainexus.com/webinars, and you can also look for a link in the show notes. So again, we're joined by Eric Ethington. Eric, how are you?
Doing good. Thanks, Mark.
Well, I'm looking forward to the webinar. It'll share a slice of the great concepts that are in the book. So I'm really looking forward to that. Before we do a little bit of preview of the content, can you share a little bit more about your background for the listeners, Eric?
Sure. As you said, if you also look over my shoulder, I'm a graduate of what's now Kettering University, the old General Motors Institute, industrial engineer out of that space, and spent the first 22 years of my career in some form of the auto industry that culminated with the time at Delphi. Then I went on and worked at Textron, and about the last 12 years, I've been out on my own. And but throughout that, had the benefit, kind of the fortune of being able to be taught by a lot of good people in doing lean in a very practical way. So it's kind of staying away from dogma, because there's that out there, but really kind of thinking more about the purpose of things and approaching it in a very pragmatic way.
Yeah, and you talk about jargon, and in the books it says no slogans, and so Eric and I talked about that in a little bit more depth in an episode of my Lean Blog Interviews podcast series, where Matt Zayko is also with us. So I'll link to that in the show notes as well. So maybe, just two high-level questions, maybe to preview the session on November 18th. What would you say, Eric, is your elevator speech about the importance of process design as maybe a precursor to then doing continuous improvement?
Really, it probably has struck maybe many people in the audience that when you're going through some sort of improvement activity, you have flashbacks to we've done this before, or we've done this in another area. Why didn't we learn to do this better now? And the same thing happened to both Matt and I, where many times in our career at different companies where we would be going through some sort of improvement activity, or better yet, the new line or the new process would arrive, and it had a lot of issues we've already solved in the old process. And so we have a lot of very smart, well-intentioned folks working on these things, yet somehow this happens over and over again. So the idea here is to say, let's have a deliberate declared process to develop our processes so that when they launch, they're never perfect. The environment's always changing. Things are going to change. You're going to have to do continuous improvement, but now we're doing it at a different level.
So an example of that maybe from healthcare might be an organization that is renovating a bunch of primary care clinics, and they renovate and reopen the first one, and they realize, we didn't plan in enough space for material storage. And then there's a scramble and sort of change. And then they renovate the next clinic and discover, we don't have enough space for supplies. What you're saying is there need to be some cycles of learning that influence future new designs?
Yes, that influence that capture that learning, but to just there's a big difference, and this was our experience. There's a big difference between us just saying that and then actually having a deliberate process to do it, and that's where we're encouraging people to look is actually come up with a process that follows a general flow. Again, we kind of worried about slogans and dogma. We give 6 different lenses to look at your process as it's developing, starting from the idea to launch. But they're not like hard and fast rules or anything like that, but just a way to give you some guidance to do better at developing processes.
And I use an example from healthcare, but what Eric is going to share, I know will have applicability to KaiNexus customers or others who are in manufacturing or other settings, because I think this process model that Eric shares and that Eric and Matt write about in their book, I know is really broadly applicable. I want maybe just one other preview question, Eric, here. Your webinar is going to focus on the role of the system architect. What's the elevator speech on this role? That might be new for an organization. I know you'll share a lot more detail in the webinar.
Yeah, that's a role that's basically, if you think about it, if you're going to have a process like this, a better process of process development, somebody needs to own it. It's not just going to happen on its own. And someone needs to own it, especially early on from both a technical standpoint, be that lean advisor to help others as this new process is being developed, but also from a straight up program management perspective, and almost be that connection point between the team doing the work and the top leadership that needs to be supporting the work. And so that's what we're calling the system architect role, is they're the person that's looking at the whole thing, right? From not just the process we're developing, but the process we're using to develop the process, if that makes sense. And then also part of their role is the PDCA of that, the continuous improvement of that, because the first time you try it, it's going to be full of mistakes and issues, but those can all be acknowledged, improved, and be better the next time.
Yeah. Well, Eric, thank you in advance for doing the webinar. Thank you for doing a little bit of a preview here today. So again, our guest today, our presenter for the next webinar is Eric Ethington, the president of LeanShift Consulting, author of a book you might want to check out called The Power of Process. That's available now, again, co-authored with Matt Zayko. So the webinar, again, is November 18th, 1:00 Eastern, The Power of Process, the Role of the System Architect. So if you're hearing this in advance, please register at kainexus.com/webinars. You can join us live. You can participate in the Q&A. If you can't attend live or you're listening to this after November 18th, you can go and register. We'll send you a link, or you can find the recording on our YouTube channel or the audio of it here in the podcast feed. So Eric, looking forward to the webinar. Thanks again.
Okay, well, thank you, Mark.